Recently, I've been going through some Marvel movies that I hadn't seen in like forever or at all, and partially is because New Rockstars has been doing their Road to Doomsday videos, which I love. Those are great. And also partially because, I hadn't seen these movies in forever at all, so I, of course, want to, see them and see if I like them or not. And that brought me to the 2004 Punisher movie, and never seen it before. It's the first time, and I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. So first off, this movie was directed by Jonathan Hensleigh. This is his first directed movie. He co-wrote this movie with a guy named Michael France. Marvel Studios was working with Artisan Entertainment to bring 15 of their characters to, movies and TV. Those characters included Captain America, Thor, Black Panther, played by Wesley Snipes. We're gonna get Deadpool, Iron Fist, Morbius, Longshot, the Power Pack, a character called Mort the Dead Teenager. Never heard of that character ever. And then Ant-Man and the Punisher. As you can see, this did not happen at all. Artisan Entertainment was purchased by Lionsgate after the, Punisher 2004 movie filmed, and they reverted all the character rights that they got back to Marvel except for the Punisher. However, Marvel did continue working with Lionsgate. They created some animated movies straight to DVD. I have a couple of them, like The Invincible Iron Man, Ultimate Avengers 2, Hulk Versus, and I like some of them that I've seen. The Invincible Iron Man one is not that good, but I remember liking Ultimate Avengers 2 and Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow, but I gotta revisit those. The story follows Frank Castle, a former FBI agent that was, part of this sting, and it goes wrong. Some people die. One of them is being Bobby Saint, the son of a crime boss named Howard Saint, and as revenge, Howard Saint sends his, crew to go to the Castle family reunion and kill all of them. And that sends Frank Castle, the Punisher, on this journey of, revenge, and he's going to take down Howard Saint and his friends, his family, and his whole crime organization. The first thing I want to talk about is Frank Castle being an FBI agent. He should not be an FBI agent at all. I think that goes against what the Punisher does and what he believes in. And I don't think if he was an FBI agent, if he was an FBI agent or a federal officer or like a police officer, he would not be the Punisher at all, I think. I just think that contradicts what he does. In this movie, there were a couple mentions of Frank having served in the military. I don't think it really mentioned if he was a Marine in the movie, but that is what he is in the comics. And Frank just feels like, hey, I'm a dude, my family got killed, now I'm going for revenge. He does not feel like war has affected Frank Castle at all. And that's just not right. War forever changed Frank. He loves fighting, he loves killing, and that's why he's the Punisher, because he was also changed by war and his family was killed. Both of those things. And it was, oh, my family was killed. Now I'm gonna go kill a bunch of people, get revenge. That's basically what this feels like. So in the comics, specifically Punisher Max, written by Garth Ennis, I have it right here, in the first omnibus, there's a little miniseries that he did called Born, which explores, Frank in the Vietnam War, and we see like a commanding officer comes down to like check out the base, see how it's doing, and he says that he's gonna pull everybody out. Frank does not like that at all. He hates that. And so he sets up the commanding officer to like accidentally walk into a sniper like test area, and then he gets shot in the head and is killed, and they're like, oh, he accidentally wandered off into the sniping range, and so we have to stay here. They don't get told to pull out of this base, because Frank, he loves fighting, he loves war, and as I said, it forever changed him. And this movie just ultimately gets his character wrong, I feel. There's a moment where Punisher is fake torturing a guy with a popsicle, and I initially really did not like that, but I did learn that it is a moment from the comics, so I am like, okay, I'm a little, now like, okay, that makes sense, but I feel like if this movie had that violence from Frank, of how it affected him, I feel like I would have been a little more with the popsicle scene. The movie does closely follow the comic Welcome Back, Frank, written by Garth Ennis. I have it right here. Really good book, 100% better than this movie in my opinion. And there is another comic that the movie is based on. It's called Punisher Year One, written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. I haven't read it, but the reviews on that seem good. So we do see in this movie Frank's entire family getting killed, and I think that takes up a large portion of this movie, and I feel like we don't need to see all that. It is interesting to see, because like in the Daredevil show and the Punisher show, we just like, see glimpses of it and we know that they died. And I feel like that's kind of all we need. We don't need to see what exactly happened. We just need to see how it affects Frank. And I also feel like Frank doesn't really seem like that affected by it. He's like just, I mean, he's out revenge, but I don't like feel the emotional weight of, his family being killed and him just hating criminals and just wanting to, kill them all. I also feel that because they didn't like have the emotional depth of his like of how Frank feels about his family being dead, as I said, I feel like they were like, hey, let's just have all of Frank's family die, the whole bloodline, just kill them all. And because that like I guess turns up the scale and like I don't know, it's just weird. I feel like the Punisher, TV show and Daredevil did it better. And I also watched Punisher Warzone. I'll have a video on that next. I feels like that movie also just portrayed how Frank feels, what his, how his family died. Just it portrays all of that better. Part of the sequence as well is like Frank, he's on a pier and he's about to die, and they think, the gang's about to kill him, and then he gets like blown off the pier, and it's like really goofy. I laughed when that happened. It was super silly. But also part of this, like Frank, after he got blasted off the pier, he's like laying on like beach or whatever, like in the water a bit, and then this guy, comes in and saves him, and then, time has passed. We see because Frank just now has a beard, and why? Like you can tell me, you can make the connection. Oh, he probably just needed to heal, and we see the passage of time with him now having a beard, but like, why? It doesn't like I feel like that would have been a good part of the movie to go into since that literally just happened, of how Frank is feeling about his family being dead, and that could be where he declares, revenge on them. And I feel like that would have been a good little part to explore that, and like maybe he couldn't bring himself to come back to the island until then. Also from the Welcome Back Frank comic, we get his neighbors Joan, Spacker Dave, and Bumpo. And I don't think that this movie really built out his relationship with them all too well, of like why they care for him or why he cares for him. It just felt like, oh, we're neighbors and we care for your neighbors and all that, but like I just didn't feel that connection in this movie like I did in the comics. This movie has a couple goofy moments, as I mentioned, Frank getting blown off the pier, but another one I thought was hilarious was that when Frank steals Livia Saint's, Howard Saint's wife's car, he puts a fire hydrant in the spot that it was and then takes it so that like nobody takes the spot, I assume, and I think that's just hilarious. That's really funny. I also felt that Frank tricking Howard Saint into killing his best friend Quentin Glass and his wife Livia, I feel like Frank wouldn't play those kind of games. I feel like he would just kill them. He's cold-blooded. He's gonna kill them. I don't feel like he'd play these games to get Howard Saint to kill his wife and his best friend. I have been dogging on this movie, and I will continue to do so. However, I do think it is a bit entertaining. It feels like a generic revenge action movie, and I think if you took the Punisher element out of it, I would like this movie a lot better as a standalone thing. But just as a Punisher movie, no, I don't think it's that good and does not get it right. But I could see people who know nothing about Punisher really liking this movie. Or if it was their, introduction to Punisher, I could also see that. Moving on to the action, this movie is rated R, but if I'm being completely honest, it does not make a good use of the R rating at all. All of the blood and violence and gore and just death it's really tame. And like the most violent part I probably thought was like he stabs a knife through someone's like chin and it goes into their mouth. That was like the most violent kill. But the rest of the movie is pretty tame. And why? The Punisher is supposed to be brutal, like what he does is not supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to be violent. It's supposed to blow people's heads off, break their knees, and just it's supposed to be bloody. It's supposed to be gruesome deaths, because that's what the Punisher does. You're supposed to be disgusted by what he does. You're supposed to feel gross, but you also understand that these are criminals. And this movie just does not, the action is just, I hate to say it, but like I've already said it, it's just generic. It feels like it could just be a PG-13 movie if they like toned a little bit of it down. It's not enough to be an R rating, and just the Punisher needs to be violent. It needs to be bloody. It needs to be gruesome. I was looking forward to the Russian fight scene, and honestly, I was disappointed by it. It's a lot better in the comics. It's a great fight in the comics, but in this movie, I was just like, okay, That's it. It wasn't that good. Initially, I had no substantial thoughts on the visuals of this movie, but then I watched Punisher Warzone and it clicked to me. That movie, and it's like it has really good lighting and it makes the movie feel dark, gritty, but also because it takes place in New York. And this movie does not. It does not feel like there's a bunch of criminals out there in this whole criminal underworld. It just feels like, hey, we're in Tampa, Florida. There's this one guy, Howard Saint. Let's take him down. And so I feel like if this movie took place in New York, it would have felt more like The Punisher. And if the movie actually felt, was dark, it's like there's a lot of scenes in broad daylight, and it just doesn't feel, that gritty, city full of criminals. It's just like, okay, hey, we're in Tampa, Florida. I don't know. There is this quote from Thomas Jane saying he's miscast as Punisher. I'm gonna read it out real quick. He said, "He's an Italian. He's got black hair and a whole different sort of lineage. I'm not that guy. I'm happy the part is now played by someone who is more right for that role." And then, so first of all, John Bernthal is not Italian. He's Jewish. And second of all, I already said that this movie does not get Punisher's character right at all. Feels like, he just feels like a guy out for revenge. And I think Thomas Jane plays that good for this movie, I think, because for what this movie's Frank Castle is, I think he fits. And I don't think he really got a chance to play an accurate Frank Castle, an accurate Punisher. So I feel like I can't really say he was miscast, but I can kind of see what he means. The rest of the cast does all right. No one really blows me out of the water, but we do get John Travolta as Howard Saint. He's all right. We get Will Patton as Quentin Glass, and I guess he was also in the Swamp Thing show, which I barely remember. I got close to finishing that show, but never did. There's also Rebecca Romijn as Joan, Mystique from the X-Men movies, the original ones. And then she also is coming back in Avengers Doomsday. And then we get James Carpinello, I think I say it. He plays Howard Saint's sons, and it took me a second. I was like, that guy looks very familiar. And then I realized he played Mario Falcone in Gotham. But yeah, as I said, no one in the cast really blew me out of the water. They were entertaining. This movie is entertaining, but yeah, I didn't really think anyone did really good. I also felt that there were some awkward dialogue moments. I can't remember exactly where they were, but if I find them when I'm editing this, I'll throw them in. And then kind of just a random thought on its own, there was no real outstanding music of this movie. Unlike Hulk 2003, they got Danny Elfman on that. That was great. I'm not even sure who did the music for this movie. I'll throw it up on the screen, but I don't know, I just thought it was okay. I guess there was a Punisher theme that I kind of started to notice, but I can't really remember it off the top of my head. Overall, this movie ultimately fails on getting the Punisher correct. Just we don't feel the weight of what war has done to him, of his family dying, and we don't get the brutal action of the Punisher. And as I already said 3 million times in this video, it just feels generic. Generic action, generic revenge movie, and I can see the entertainment in that. That's why I was a bit entertained in this movie, but it just made me more annoyed than anything else. Would I rewatch this movie? Honestly, probably not. It'd have to be years from now. It'd have to be forever from now. And it's not that good of a Punisher story. There's a lot better Punisher stories that I'd rather rewatch, like Daredevil Season 2, The Punisher Show, the Netflix one, and Punisher Warzone. Rather rewatch all of those. Those are better Punisher movies. And, if anybody made it this far, thank you for watching. It'd be greatly appreciated if you could leave a like, if you could subscribe, or if you have maybe if you could leave a comment if you disagree, agree with me, or there's anything else you want to say about this movie. But yeah, next movie I'm going to talk about is Punisher Warzone, and as I said, much better movie than this.